I'm Dr. Alaimo, and today I wanted to take a couple minutes just to discuss autoimmunity, which is autoimmune disease, what causes it, what are some of the different autoimmune conditions that can be benefited through proper diet, nutrition, and lifestyle changes, which is what we focus on in our office every day. The first thing that we need to understand, what is autoimmune disease? Autoimmune disease is when the body gets attacked because the body loses its ability to recognize self-tissue. So if it attacks your joints, that's rheumatoid arthritis. If it attacks your brain, that's multiple sclerosis. If it attacks your thyroid, that's Hashimoto's or Graves' disease. You get the idea. So the gut is celiac disease. So again, autoimmunity is when the body attacks self-tissue. Now what causes this? The first thing we need to understand, there's about 3 or 4 different factors that are common in all autoimmune diseases. Number one is you have to have the genetic predisposition for the disease. What does that mean? You have to have been born with the genes. If you're not born with the genes to have Hashimoto's, you can't get Hashimoto's. How do you know if you have the genes? We look at family history. That's really the best way to do it. And there's also other extensive tests that we can do to look for HLA-DQ markers, which actually tell us if you have the genes for any of these conditions. So that's one way we can tell. The second thing that we need to look at when we look at autoimmunity is you need to have a trigger. Just because you're born with the gene does not mean you'll necessarily develop the disease. You could have 2 brothers that were born with the same gene, genetic makeup, one develop a condition, one not. So we need to look at different triggers. Many different triggers can turn on the autoimmune process. In Hashimoto's, for instance, we know things like pregnancy, iodine, insulin surges, estrogen surges, vitamin D deficiency. All these things have been linked towards a trigger for turning on the condition. Gluten is another really big known trigger. Now for all autoimmune diseases, the downside is that they don't really know what the main trigger is for a lot of these different conditions. The only known trigger for any autoimmune disease that we know of right now is celiac disease. And that trigger is gluten. That's in all the research, everybody agrees on that. So what we've done is extrapolated, and we've noticed that gluten sensitivity can be implicated in a lot of different autoimmune processes. And there's tons of research right now that's showing this. And some of your traditional healthcare providers agree with this, some of them don't. That's not the issue at this point. The research is there. If you don't believe me, go look it up, PubMed.com, and there's tons of research based on gluten sensitivity relating back to a lot of different autoimmune conditions. So now we know that you have to have the genes, and you have to have a trigger to turn it on. The last thing that you need to have an autoimmune disease present itself is a leaky gut. Leaky gut comes from eating the wrong foods over a long period of time, living a high-stress lifestyle where you have an inability to regenerate the lining of the stomach, or you have an inability or a decrease in your SIG-A cells, which are immune cells in the gut. These things both come from cortisol. So cortisol needs to be examined. But once you develop a leaky gut, there are things that we can do to help repair a leaky gut. Things like vitamin D, glutathione, different things have been shown to tighten up the tight junctions in the gut so that we can help repair it. But if you have a leaky gut, large particles of food leak through the gut, get into the bloodstream, the body recognizes this as being foreign, and then it wants to attack it. And that's basically what happens. That's how autoimmune processes start. So if you don't have these 3 things present, you can't develop an autoimmune disease. So again, you have to have the genes, you have to have a trigger to turn it on, and you have to have a leaky gut. Now the most recent research also indicates that you need to have a glutathione deficiency. Glutathione is the motherlode, most powerful antioxidant on the planet. Now if you have adequate levels of glutathione, it keeps autoimmunity at bay. Most of us, because of increased stress, we get depleted or diminished glutathione levels. We don't eat enough foods that have glutathione in it, things like avocados, and so we develop glutathione deficiency. So one of the cornerstones of our management towards autoimmune patients is boosting up your glutathione levels to get it to a really high and adequate level. So again, that's the newest thing to come onto the frontier. So the things, just in recapping now, you have to have the genetic predisposition, a trigger to turn it on, a leaky gut, and most definitely glutathione deficiency. These things trigger and create the perfect storm towards developing an autoimmune disease. So I hope that helped you. If you have any questions, feel free to call the office, 910-251-1620. Thanks. Have a great day.